It's Donald Trump up against Governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards. Today on Political Access, we'll go through each state and find a winner. So let's jump right into this. Safe states are over a 10-point margin, likely 5 to 10 points, lean under 5 points, and tilt 1 point or less. So how do I see this one going? Well, Donald Trump, his brand is tainted. He's got a lot of scandals. Media, a lot of corporations would be hard against him. I think his margins would be reduced. I don't want to completely count him out because a lot of the times I thought he was going to lose. He ended up winning. But on the other side of things, John Bel Edwards is the governor of Louisiana. He's not unpopular there. He is definitely a moderate. He's one of the lightest Democrats in the country. A lot of Democrats don't view him as a real Democrat. They think he's more aligned with Republicans. But in a general election, he's going to be more palatable, especially against someone polarizing like Donald Trump. But this is the thing with primaries. A lot of the bases and people even one step under the base, they don't really want a moderate. They want somebody that's going to go in there with a clear agenda that aligns with their general philosophy. The only problem is those candidates are less electable in a general election. People closer to the base, they want somebody that is going to deliver the goods. And they generally shy away from a moderate who might be more electable, but then they're going to capitulate on their governing style once they're in office. So a lot of times you have to decide, do you want the more electable candidate, even though you're going to get a lot less of what you really want? Or do you want to roll the dice with someone like Donald Trump who would deliver more for you and your base, but it's going to be tougher to get there, and plus you're going to be anti-establishment, and you're going to have a lot more people against you. That's the dilemma I see. But having said all that, I think John Bel Edwards would generally do a little bit better. I think a lot of the Democratic base would stay home for sure. He's kind of like a Joe Manchin, except he's in an executive position from a southern state. He's won twice. He's going to be much more electable in a lot of the suburbs. The deep blue coastal areas, they're not going to come out as much, but they're going to come out to vote against Donald Trump. So combine that with Trump having a lot of baggage, and let's get started in Alaska. This will be a likely for Donald Trump. I think his margin would get into single digits at this point in 2024. Hawaii, safe for John Bel Edwards. Up to the coast, Washington, Oregon, California, all safe for John Bel Edwards. Nevada, this will be lean for John Bel Edwards. I think him being a moderate would give him an extra couple of points, even though the state is trending a little bit toward the right. And at this point, Trump's brand is not going to be able to win over in Nevada. Idaho, Utah, still safe for Donald Trump. Arizona, that will be lean for John Bel Edwards. Arizona is trending toward the left. Trump won it the first time, lost it the second time. At this point, I can't imagine him winning it against a super moderate Democrat. So Bel Edwards would win this by a couple of points, maybe even 3 or 4. Montana, Wyoming, still over 10 points, safe for Trump. Colorado, safe for John Bel Edwards, over 10 points. New Mexico, that will be likely for John Bel Edwards. That's high single digits. I can't even say for sure that wouldn't hit 10 points, but John Bel Edwards would do much better in New Mexico. North Dakota, South Dakota, safe for Trump. Nebraska at large, safe for Trump. But the 2nd District, which has Omaha, that is much bluer. Redistricting brought it a little bit toward the right, but that would be likely for John Bel Edwards. That could even be close to double digits. The 1st District, which is outside of Omaha, that will be likely for Trump at just under a 10-point margin. Kansas, that will also be just under a 10-point margin for Donald Trump. John Bel Edwards will be moderate enough to sway a lot of the independents, especially from the suburbs of Kansas City that used to be more Republican, and they have abandoned the party since Donald Trump. Oklahoma, safe for Trump. Texas, that I have is just over 5 points, likely for Donald Trump. I still think a lot of the base and a lot of those red counties would come out for Donald Trump, and a lot of the very hard left voters in a place like Austin, Travis County, they're not going to come out a ton for John Bel Edwards. Even though they want to vote against Trump, they're still not going to come out as much as they would for a candidate they actually like. Up to Minnesota, that will be likely for John Bel Edwards, probably mid to high single digits there. Iowa, that will be likely for Donald Trump, mid to high single digits for him. Missouri, safe for Trump. Arkansas, safe for Trump. Louisiana, John Bel Edwards' home state. It's hard to predict a margin like this because on a presidential level, it's a very red state. But given his popularity and given the polarization of Donald Trump, I'll give it to Donald Trump by a likely margin, high single digits. It could go safe, but I don't think John Bel Edwards would come close to winning it. Up to Wisconsin, that'll be lean for John Bel Edwards, low single digits, 2-3 points. Illinois, safe for John Bel Edwards. Michigan, that is also lean for John Bel Edwards, probably low to mid single digits, probably 3 to 6 points. Indiana, safe for Trump still. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, those will all still be over 10 points and safe for Donald Trump. The margins will be reduced there, but he would win them comfortably by over 10. Let's go to Florida, Donald Trump's home state. In the midterms, it did go far to the right, but on a presidential level, it's not going to be voting for the Republican by 15 points. Donald Trump, his star has fallen since he first ran and since he last ran. John Bel Edwards is from a southern state. He's moderate. There would be some crossover voting, but I still think Trump would win it by a lean margin. So combine that with the trend of the state, I would guess Trump would win it by 3 to 5 points still. Up to Georgia, that will be lean for John Bel Edwards. There's no way Donald Trump is going to win back those suburban Atlanta voters in counties like Cobb, Gwinnett, DeKalb. They're either going to be voting for John Bel Edwards or against Donald Trump. So the margin there would also be 3 to 5 points. South Carolina, that I have is just under 10 points, likely for Donald Trump. North Carolina, this is a tough call. I can see this going either way. I sat on this for a little while, but in the end, I settled on under a half a point tilt for Donald Trump. He could lose it. That's definitely a possibility, but I have him just barely squeaking by and getting just enough of that turnout he did in his prior 2 runs. Let's go up to Ohio. This will be likely for Donald Trump. Maybe his margin gets down to 5 to 6 points, but it'll still be a likely. I don't see John Bel Edwards having a whole lot of appeal in the Rust Belt. Culturally, he is a much better fit than a typical Democrat. On economics, Donald Trump's populism, it's still going to get a lot of voters to turn out for him. And John Bel Edwards being much more palatable on the social and cultural issues, I think that would make it more difficult for Donald Trump. Just like in the next state, West Virginia, Donald Trump still wins this easily by over 10 points. But I think John Bel Edwards would do better than most other Democrats. Let's go up to Maine. At large, that would be just safe for John Bel Edwards. Low double digits there. The 1st district, of course, safe for him as well. The 2nd district, that is the much more Trump-friendly district. That will be a likely for Donald Trump. Again, I'm not exactly sure of the margin in this particular hypothetical, but I am confident Trump would still win it. New Hampshire, that will be likely for John Bel Edwards. As we get more into the Northeast, higher educated, wealthier states, Donald Trump is not somebody they would want to vote for, and John Bel Edwards would win that by mid to even high single digits. Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. all safe for John Bel Edwards. Pennsylvania, that would be lean for John Bel Edwards, probably 3 to 5 points. As I just said, it's kind of tough to figure out what the turnout would be in those deep red Trump counties. Compare that to the suburban and independent shift. Also see how that stacks up against the turnout in the deep blue cities. I'm not sure, but I think John Bel Edwards would win it at this point in time, and Trump would lose by at least a few points. And finally, the last state is Virginia. That will be likely for John Bel Edwards, probably high single digits. It could even get over 10. There's just not enough Republican vote there to make this really competitive. And that is my map, and that would result in 235 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 303 for John Bel Edwards, and John Bel Edwards wins this election relatively comfortably. I tried to lay out most of the factors I considered, but there are unknowns, vice presidential picks, national environment. What kinds of issues would someone like John Bel Edwards actually run on? We know he had success in Louisiana, but a national campaign, that might not translate well, and he could end up doing worse than I anticipate. And how much anti-Trump vote is out there at this point? I would guess there's enough to keep Trump out of the White House. I'm sure Trump would get big crowds at a lot of his rallies, and it would seem like he has a lot of momentum. But in the end, I think a lot of voters would just say they don't want to deal with the circus again. Even if they do agree with him on maybe half of the issues at least, the Trump fatigue would probably either cause them to stay home or even vote for John Bel Edwards. So I know Democrats hate these super moderate candidates, just like Republicans, they hate their super moderate candidates. But they do generally seem to be more electable. Once they get in office, of course they're going to be pressured to go farther left or farther right. But then again, if you have an outsider, anti-establishment, farther left or farther right candidate winning the general election, again, it's going to be very difficult to work with the establishment. The media would come after you, and you're going to be pressured to be pulled toward the center. So everybody does seem to hate the fringes, but then at the same time, everybody also seems to hate the more standard, moderate, corporate-type politician. And that's why politics is really not a lot of fun most of the time. But this is what I came up with. Let me know in the comments, do you mostly agree with my map? Or would you change 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even 8 or 9 of these states? Let me know down below. And on your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next video.